I have been 3D printing with PLA for a few years now, and you know, PLA is basically the most reliable filament in the market. And so you can basically take the filament out of the box, put it in the printer and send anything to print and it'll print basically. However, lately I've been trying to improve the quality of my 3D printed parts. And so for this, in this video, what I'm going to show you is how to calibrate the filament. In this case, I'm just going to talk about PLA. I will create another video. Let me know in the comments if you want to know, but I'm going to make another video, same thing like this one, to calibrate ASA filaments. I already have this video talking about ASA, but it's more about like the tips that I have for you and some tricks when I 3D print with PLA. What I'm going to show you here is how to calibrate the PLA filament, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper in understanding Orca Slicer as such, because I'm pretty sure you have used Orca Slicer, maybe if you're not an expert, or maybe if you're not an advanced user, you may be still having questions about what options to use so that your filament, let's say the printer, prints properly with the filament you put in. In this case, it's only PLA. Now, I'm going to use this brand new Techcore filament. This one I bought from Inkstation. I'm based in Adelaide, Australia, so I'm going to be using this one. And what I want to do here is, well, first. This is completely brand new filament. Okay, completely sealed. It's been there in the box for some time already. And so let's get started. So first thing is first, opening Orca Slicer, I'm not going to show you how to pair the printer to the slicer, anything like that. In this case, I'm using the Bambu Lab P1S with the AMS2 Pro kit. And in this case, I'm not running through the cloud, but on the developer mode. Why? Because, you know, Bambu Lab wants to enclose the whole environment only for Bambu Lab printers to use the Bambu Studio. I'm not gonna get into that discussion at the moment, but I'm using Orca Slicer because Orca Slicer has this option on the top that I'm going to show you right now, there. So this calibration option is going to have these options for you to calibrate the filament. Now, there's going to be 5 tests we're going to run, one after the other. You can skip them. Try to don't be, I want to say lazy, but probably don't rush, okay? You need to calibrate your filament so that the 3D printed parts, they come out nice off the printer. So first thing here, what I'm going to do is make sure you have your printer selected here, okay? You don't need to touch anything here. You don't need to touch the printer, you don't need to touch the nozzle unless you are using a 0.2 or 0.6 nozzle, 0.2, 0.6 millimeter nozzle. If you need to change it, you need to go to the printer and change it in the settings of the printer and the accessories. You need to change it there so that the printer and the slicer, they talk to each other and they understand each other. So I'm going to leave this as is, and I'm just going to make sure the texture PEI plate is selected. There's a few, so you select the one you're using. If it's the default one, you just default to the texture one. Now, let's create one filament. I'm going to tell you that I have created all these filaments one by one. I was super small business, so I only have one Bambu Lab P1S printer. I don't have multiple printers at the moment. That's why I can do this. Some others, they just, you know, they buy the same filament from the same provider, so you don't need to, for example, if you buy, I don't know, 1,000 filaments, 1,000 rolls of filament from InkStation, and it's the same brand, and you know, they're all the same batch, you don't need to worry about doing this every single time for each roll. It's more between different kind of materials, but in PLA, for example, you have PLA Basic, PLA Plus, PLA High Flow. So, you know, you will understand when to calibrate it. Maybe you send something to print and that doesn't print very accurate as you expected. Then you might need to come back and do this. So let's think you got a new computer, you just installed Orca Slicer, you have a new printer, you paired everything up. Now from here, you're going to create a new filament. So you click this set filament to use. Cool. So you can unselect all of these, and these slicers, they come with presets. So you don't need to find the specific brand. That's something I don't do. So I go PLA and then select generic. And here you will see there are four different filaments for PLA, 4 different types of PLA. So you select the one you are trying to calibrate. In this case, this is a normal PLA. It's not PLA Silk, at least, or PLA Matte. So generic PLA, and you click confirm. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a basic filament profile. Okay, so it's going to put the basic configurations, the basic settings for a generic PLA filament, and that is going to print pretty much okay. You will not have any headaches. The second thing is you come here. I already have presets for every single filament, and probably it's more for different types of objects in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down, and you can find this 0.2 millimeters standard BBL-X1Z. This is basically telling you, okay, I'm going to use the basic preset for the printer. Point 2, don't get confused between this point 2 and point 4. This is the thickness of the printing part, or the thickness of the nozzle, of the printing feature of the nozzle. And this is the height of the layer, okay? Now, with this, we're going for the first calibration step, which is temperature. So you got your new filament, and in the roll, in the box, or in the plastic, in the spool, you will see a sticker, a label. That label, in my case, it says the printing temperature is from 200 degrees to 210 degrees. So if you click temperature, it's going to show you all the different filaments. We're going to calibrate PLA. That's one. Second, start temperature and the end temperature. So the start temperature in this case, use the highest temperature for starting the process, and the lowest temperature to finish the tower, or this temperature calibration. So in this case, it says from 200 to 210. I'm going to change a little bit from 215 to 195. I'm just going to give it a little bit of wiggle room so that if, I don't know, maybe 215 is going to work better on my printer, so let's give it a go. So if you click OK, it's going to create this tower, okay? So this tower, what it's going to do, probably you've done it before, you've seen it before, so it's going to print this part at 215 degrees, this part to 10, and all the other levels at the same way. So it's going to reduce 5 degrees every block. Now, this is going to do a few tests, basically. So it's going to test walls, it's going to test this part, which is basically, you will see it, but when at high or low temperatures, sometimes that little cone doesn't print properly or so as clean as you would expect. So we're gonna have a look at that, and it's going to print this this hanging area, this bridge, kind of bridge, but the real bridge is this one. So I'm going to put the filament in the printer in the AMS. I will send that to print, and I will come back and show you the results from here, and I'll show you what to do next. I'm back, but I haven't sent this to print because I need to tell you a couple of things. One, once you click calibration temperature and you select the temperatures for your filament test, for your temperature test, don't change anything in the settings here on the left hand side. Don't change the layer height, the speeds, accelerations, anything. You don't need to change anything because the same slicer with that calibration test is going to make everything for you, basically. So the settings are there so that this temperature test comes out good enough so that you can understand and you can start calibrating the filament. Remember, this is the first test out of 5, so don't change nothing there. The second thing is, the only thing you need to change is in the AMS. So remember, you selected here in this section, in the filament section, generic PLA. So here on the top, you will see this tab called device. Click on that device. Come over here. I only have one filament fitting into the AMS, so it's in the slot 2. So click this little pen, and in the filament option in this drop down list, go and search for generic PLA. Select that. It doesn't matter the color, honestly. But with this, what you're telling the printer is, hey AMS, hey printer, you are going to use the generic PLA profile. Just a recommendation there, because if you use ASA, for example, so it's going to send mixed signals, basically. After you do that, you come back to prepare, and I like to do this. Maybe if you are watching this video and you are an expert or you know a lot more than what I do, I like to move the object a little bit away from the original position and click slice plate. With this, what I'm doing is refreshing the whole G-code. And so, yes, that's it. So you can click print plate and send it. I'm just going to activate time lapse and show you the 3D printing part. Okay, so it finished printing, and well, it came really good. So there are a few things to consider here. So the first thing I check is how much stringing we have in each level, okay? So if you can see the difference in stringing in this one and this one, they are okay, but probably between this one. So remember the filament says that this one can print, or the recommended temperature to print is 200, from 200 to 210. So here between 200, like 215 is just a lot. So it gets a lot of stringing here, and here it doesn't have stringing, but we're gonna check a couple of things that will tell me 195 degrees is not good. So here, between 200 and 210, although I printed from 195 to 215, I just wanted to do that to show you a couple of things. So 210 looks like it's a really good starting point. We also check on this side these overhangs, which ones are the best. So I reckon they're all okay. There's not much difference in these ones. There's only this bit here, but I think that's not a big deal. One of the important things, honestly, now that I see these ones, you have to check this bottom part of the bridge, okay? So if you compare this one has this little filament line, but this one has this one, okay? So what it's telling you is that 205 is too low, or it's lower. Well, of course, if it's lower than 210, but 210 behaves a lot better when making a bridge. Last thing that I like to consider is these overhangs on the left hand side, okay? So I take three things in consideration: the stringing, the bridge, and these overhangs. So from these three overhangs, honestly, if you check 210 and you compare it against, for example, 200, there is a little bit of excess or something that is not working properly here. Whereas here you can see all the lines running probably a little bit better than the 200 degrees. But to that, sometimes what I like to check, and I think I haven't seen people explaining this, is how rough are these top areas, okay? And especially if you feel with your fingers, if you feel like these tips, they bend up, or if there is roughness on the top. So if I feel here, this 215, I can feel a lot more of resistance here, like excess of filament here. But here is smooth, that's okay. This one is smooth as well, but I already discarded 205 because of the bridge. You don't have to go extremely deep because this is the first test, okay? What this tower is telling me is that for this filament, for this roll of filament, 210 degrees is a really good starting point, okay? And it's a really good temperature to play around with this filament. Plus, and this is extremely important, if you use a lower temperature on the filament, that will cause that the layers don't create good adhesion between them. So the colder the filament, the lower the quality you're gonna get in your printed parts. So that means that the layers they won't stick together properly. Higher temperatures, like 210 degrees, these will allow to the layers to stick together a lot better, okay? So don't think that increasing a little bit the temperature is going to be bad for your filament. So 210, and now let's jump back on the slicer and let's configure our filament. Now that we have our temperature of 210 degrees Celsius for printing for this specific filament, you need to close Orca Slicer and don't save anything, okay? So close it and open it again. Now create a new filament, so you come here, set filaments to use. That will take a few seconds. And then come here to custom filaments. Here you will create that specific type of filament. So click create new. This one is a brand that is not in this list. I'm going to call it Techor. So Techor. Type, of course, PLA. And serial will be basically the color. In my case, I will name this one Rainbow 01. That's the name on the label. Create based on what type of filament. So go and copy everything from one filament, which will be the generic PLA, which is the one we were using here. And in this case, it says we could create the filament presets for your following printer. So I'm going to use Bambu Lab P1S 04 nozzle, which is this one, okay? That way, this specific filament, custom filament, will be attached to that printer. And it's good because you are calibrating this filament for a Bambu Lab P1S 0.4 millimeters nozzle. And whenever you change the nozzle to 0.2 or 0.6, you can calibrate the same filament for that type of nozzle. And tomorrow, if you're going to print something at 0.2, you just go and change the settings there because the printer has been already calibrated for that type of filament, for that type of nozzle, sorry. So with this, we can just click create. And you have this message, filament created, you click OK. And here, change this generic one to PLA, Techor PLA Rainbow 01. We haven't changed the temperature for that filament yet. So here, click on these three dots, click edit, and then scroll down and find this print temperature nozzle first and other layers, change it to 210. Then click save and click OK. Perfect. First test done. Let's go to the test number 2. So number 2 in calibration is max flow rate. So you don't need to change anything here. You just click OK and you will have this model. So what this model will do is this will print in vase mode. Don't worry about that. Just keep it keep it for you. It's vase mode. So it's just one layer and it goes around and around and around. And it's one layer. So send this to the printer, and once that is printed, I'm just going to show you what will be the next step and how to read this printed model and how to change or how to calculate what is the correct maximum flow rate for this filament. And I'm back because I forgot to tell you this. You now remember that we changed and we create this Techor PLA Rainbow 01 custom filament. We now need to tell to the AMS to use that type, like that preset. So in that case, before you go and print, click device, wait for it, it's going to load the information. Come over here, click on that little pen and go and find in this massive list your the custom name of the filament. So in my case, the name is Techor PLA Rainbow 01. Okay. It doesn't matter if you have these numbers, because this information is going to be matched and it's going to be taken from the filament you created in the other part. So click confirm, and now go back here, move it around a little bit, slice plate again, and now you can go and print it. This finished. This is the part that you should have printed, something like this. And if you have this printed but on the top and bottom parts or somewhere like there is nothing really good about this 3D printed part, this means probably that your filament is holding a lot of humidity. You might need to dry it, or maybe the filament is too old. So just make sure you use a good filament, fairly new. And in that case, just try to dry it or get a new one. If you got something like this part, which came clean, there is no issues with the printing part, this is telling us that the filament can hold between 5 cubic millimeters per second up to 20 cubic millimeters per second. It can handle those speeds. There is a little difference between the speeds, and I'm going to show you that in the next image. So that photo that I'm going to show you, I took the photo this way, okay? So here, this is the bottom of the printed part, and this is the top printed part. Now, the light here is coming in an angle, which is good because it can show me that this is probably the worst light that a 3D printed part can be shine under, because it's going to show you all the layer issues, okay? So like, you know, if the light is coming right from the top like this is going to look terrible. But this is going to, this is showing us a lot of issues. And basically the bottom area, this area, are the lower speeds basically. So I want to avoid between, let's say if this is 5 millimeters, 5 cubic millimeters per second, and this is 20, here in the middle, we are talking about 12.5 cubic millimeters per second. So I want to avoid from 5 up to 12.5. I want to go over 12.5, but I don't want to go up to 20. So basically, the good or ideal printing volumetric speed will be 16.5. But if you leave on 16, that's good. So I'm going to, this is not something that you read directly from the printed part, but you can read it from the slicer. So if you come back to the slicer, on the top right corner, you change here from this list, you go to flow. And here on the right hand corner, you have 31.88. This is the height of this printed part. So if it's 31, you can go down to the middle, which is probably 15. Well, not probably, it's 15. And so you come down over here and move these to the left, okay? So this is telling you that this layer was printed at a flow of 12.67 cubic millimeters per second. Now, we said that I don't want to be, I want to be over 12.5, but 12.5 is the marginal low speed. So I want to go up a little bit. So if this is 30 millimeters, I want to go between 15 and 30 millimeters in height. That should be 22.5. So if I go to 22.5, around here, the maximum speed is 16.2, 16.3. That's what I told you. So I recommend to always try to find these constant clear lines. Avoid these ones, because these ones, I would think that the filament, when it's being printed, the filament is doing this, okay? So it's like creating that zigzag pattern, and I want to have a straight line. So 16.5, that would be my number. It probably will change for you. Just make sure you find those clear lines. And what you need to do here is keep that number in your mind, 16.5. Close this. Don't save anything. Discard everything. You can click no. And then open a new window of your OrCAD slicer. From there, come to your filament, click the three dots, click edit, scroll all the way down, and on volumetric speed, change the number to the number we set, 16.5. Now, if you think that 16.5 is close to probably an error, like the printing part started to look horrible, and probably the layer lines started to creep down or whatever, just go a little bit lower, meaning if it's not 16.5, maybe go 14.5, okay? So that you have some room. If the speed goes up or down, it doesn't fall in those areas where the printed part is going to fail. So in my case, it's going to be 16.5, click save and click OK. Cool. So that's our second test. Now the third test is going to be pressure advanced. So for pressure advanced, we have different information here. The pattern that in this case, if you are using a direct drive extruder like the Bambu Lab P1S, you can leave it there. And if you're using something like an Ender, an old Elegoo, like Elegoo, maybe the Neptune 3, that uses a Bowden tube that feeds the filament all the way down to the extruder. So you can change it. But in this case, I'm going to leave it as DDE or direct drive extruder, and then I'm going to use the PA pattern. Now, here in this pattern, I'm just gonna close this, because in accelerations and speeds, you might need you need to change these numbers. You need to type those numbers. You can grab those numbers from here. You come to speed, and then you have outer wall and inner wall. My recommendation for outer walls is to use a lower speed. So 200 is correct, but I want to have all the speeds at the same rate. So I'm going to change this to 200, okay? In a few minutes. That's what is going to happen. So I'm going to use 200 because the outer wall is telling me, like, the outer wall is going to be the part that you will see from the 3D printed part, not the inner walls. So I'm going to use the same speed on both. And accelerations, as you can see, the normal printing is going to be 10,000 millimeters per square second, but I want to go at the same speed, or in this case, at the same acceleration as the outer wall. So in this case, I will reduce this to 5,000 in a minute, okay? So I'm just going to revert that back, change that back, and create a pressure advance pattern. Accelerations, we're going to say 5,000. So you have to run this test. That's what I'm telling the printer. Run this test at a maximum acceleration of 5,000, and the speed will be 200. Click OK. There's going to be some changes here in the profiles, and then click Slice Plate. Now, what this is going to do is going to print these lines, okay, in that pattern, and this is going to tell us something critical for under extrusion or over extrusion when printing those corners. And what it's going to help us is to identify the pressure advance that will keep those lines printed properly, clean, sharp. So I'm going to send this to the printer and I will show you in a minute what are the results. Our pressure advance test finished. I'm going to show you how to interpret this, how to understand and what to do with this test. So I'm going to read quickly what pressure advance means. And this setting is used to compensate for the buildup and release of pressure inside your 3D printer's nozzle. It tells the printer extruder motor to dynamically push or retract filament based on speed. So this will help us to avoid big blobs in the corners, and it's going to help us to keep a constant size. Like if you're printing a 2mm wall, and of course a 2mm wall here on an angle or on a corner, this point where both walls join, it won't allow, I'll show you, this will allow the printer to print a fairly smooth corner. So I'm going to show you here the picture. On the right hand side, you have the different pressure advance levels or steps. So here you have 0, 0.005, and so on. So you have just one half step between the numbers. So in here, the first thing you just need to skip is these kind of finish hairs and all of these. Don't worry about that. We are just taking care of these areas, okay? So the corners. In here, as you can see, at a pressure advance of 0.08, the pressure advance is terrible. So what is happening here is the motor is pulling back, is retracting too much filament, and when it hits the corner and it starts accelerating and speeding up, the filament is not being pushed quickly, basically. So that's why you have this under extrusion area. So if you go up, it reduces slowly, and then you have these, okay, these little lines here, and this one. I'm painting it and I'm removing it so that you can see what I'm talking about. So here what it's telling me is that the nozzle is pretty much spot on. But if we go one step further, we have these little holes here. We want to avoid that. And so if we go one step further, we have no space, okay? So there's no gaps, there's no, we don't see these little gaps. Here, if you keep going up, now you start seeing this blob, okay? That's what we want to avoid. And this blob is bigger. So if you compare that one to this one, this corner is pretty much perfect, is clean. Now, remember that the line that is being printed is basically a circle. So this corner is not going to be as sharp as we would like, but this can be probably improved with a 0.2mm nozzle, completely up to you. But here we are talking about a 0.4mm nozzle. So my recommendation here is don't use, in this case, this one. If you come over here, you read 0.02, that's a number. It's not millimeters, it's just a number. Don't use 0.02. If you go one step up, this should be 0.015. Okay. Now, what I would do is I will push a little bit further, but I wouldn't go up to 0.1. I would go between 0.15 and 0.1. Probably in this case, what I would do is I would go with 0.12, 0.012, okay? So on your slicer, close the slicer, don't save anything, come back up, so open a new one, a new slicer, a new window, and come here, edit on your filament, scroll down, enable pressure advanced, enable that, and change this number to the number you see is the best. So in my case, 0.012. Okay, so with that, click OK and click close. So last thing that I did was this photo. I put this on the window of my room, and I took the photo in a today is really sunny. That way you can see the light coming from the back, okay? And that shows you a lot better the result. So maybe you would think, oh no, 0.2 is better, but if you go 0.12, it's going to be a lot better. So this test is done. The fourth step is flow ratio. But for this one, we need to do one more thing before we go on. And in here, we need to create a profile for that filament. So what we're going to do here is click Save. And here, I'm just going to say G28 Studios, PLA, in this case, Techcore PLA Rainbow 01, and save. Now, these settings are going to be an addition to whatever is set up in the filament. But for the filament, we're talking only about the filament. And in this case, we're talking about layer heights, speeds, accelerations, which is not here in these settings, okay? So you can't change the speeds, accelerations from here. So in here, you come over to speed, and as you remember, in the pressure advanced test, we edit, and maybe we set up the speed and accelerations to two numbers. So both those two numbers were 200 in speed. So I'm going to change everything to 200 millimeters per second. Here, 200, 200, and 200. If it's 150, which is under 200, leave it like that. Don't change it. And then scroll down a little bit and go to the acceleration area and change that 10,000 for 5,000. That's what we talk about. Travel, don't worry about that. You can reduce it. I like, from time to time, I like to reduce it. I'm gonna leave it like that, but you can reduce it to 5,000. Travel means when the tool head moves from one area to another area. But during that travel, it doesn't print, okay? So it's okay if you leave it 10,000, no problem at all. You can reduce it, that's okay. And after that, you can click Save and Save. So it's going to change it's going to save all the changes. Now, let's go to flow ratio. So click on calibration, click flow ratio, and click this yellow recommended test. So you don't need to do anything else here. Again, as always, make sure that in your device here, you have the Techcore PLA Rainbow 01, and of course, it needs to match to your filament, and you can slice it and send it to print. So I'm gonna get this printed, and I'll be back, and I will show you how to read and how to understand these results. Flow ratio is ready, so now that it's printed, one thing that I would like you to do is just slide your finger over those ones and tell me what is the difference. So you will notice that maybe the 0.05, the one on the top right corner, you will feel that these parts, you can feel those blobs basically. We want to avoid that, okay? So if you check, this one is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They all have that ring showing up, okay? We want to avoid them. So basically, we're not going to take them into account for what we're going to do. Now, if you go from the other side, from minus 0.05, you will notice one more thing. You may say, okay, I don't feel anything here is pretty flat, the surface is smooth, but what you're not seeing is this, okay? So between the lines, you have these holes. That hole, that gap, basically gaps. So what is happening here is the difference of the flow ratio is causing the filament to don't overlap the next, or the layer after, or the layer before the layer just printed, okay? So basically, this prints on a spiral, and what this is telling me is that when it's printed and it comes back up, okay, so when it spirals back, the layer doesn't sit on top of the other one, okay? What it does is there is a gap. That's terrible for 3D printing. If you want to have a really good and clean finish on the top layers, you need to avoid these gaps. So for that, you need to use your phone, or maybe a magnifier, something to be able to look close up to the gaps. And in my case here, I have 3 results. So 0 here, minus 0.1, and minus 0.2. So the difference is 0.2 is a little bit better, okay? But I can see still gaps here. If I move to minus 0.01, there are less gaps, okay? But still, we can see gaps. 0.0, sorry, has no gaps, okay? It's completely clean. So I don't see gaps there, I don't see gaps here, I don't see gaps here. But what I notice is that there is a bit of ring on this area and this area. What do I do in this case? Same thing. So if 0 is close and minus 0.01 is close, in that case, what I would do here is use the middle. So I would use 0.005. And this number I need to subtract, because this is a negative number. I need to subtract that number from the flow ratio on my slicer. So now that you have that number there, come back to your slicer, okay, to this one, close, don't save, and discard everything. And I'm just going to close this one as well. I'm going to open a new one and come to the filament, edit it, scroll down, and you see the flow ratio here. Now, to this flow ratio, I'm going to add or subtract what I found in my test. So I'm just going to go with a calculator. I know what the number is, but I just want you to see that 0.95 minus 0.005 is 0.975. So 0.975 and save, okay? With this, what you can do is you can run the test again and see if the number 0 is completely clean, flat, no gaps. The other thing that you can notice, and this is something that can be resolved with ironing, something that I explained in this video as well, you can remove these rough edges, these ones, okay? But that's what we're trying to avoid, like that's what we're trying to clean with these tests. Ironing will be the last. If you want to have a completely flat and no gaps, no layers seen, you need to go with the ironing bit. So it's explained in that video that I'm showing here. So cool. The fifth test, now that we have this, click save, okay, and close. Come over here to calibration and let's do the retraction test. So the retraction test, in this case, it'll depend on what type of printer you have. If you have a direct drive extruder or a Bowden extruder, Bowden printer. For the direct drive extruder, you should not go over 2 millimeters in this test. But if it's a Bowden printer, Bowden tube extrusion system, you should go up to 7 millimeters or maybe 8. But I don't recommend to go over 7. I usually, in old printers, I used to use 5 millimeters, 5.5, and it would work okay. For direct drive printers, you use up to 2. Click OK, and then you have this little tower that basically the retraction test, what it's going to do is whenever you go from, in this case, from the right-hand side to left-hand side, it's going to pull out X amount of filament. It'll travel and then push that back and keep printing. So what this is going to tell us is how much retraction we need to have for the printer, so that the filament, so that the nozzle, doesn't create stringing. So you don't have those little hairs floating around. There's going to be some. It's impossible to remove 100% of them, but it's possible to reduce the amount in a really high number. So with this, we're going to find how much retraction we need. There is a setting in the filament where you can basically override the retraction, but there is a retraction already set in the printer, okay? So directly in the printer, not in the filament. And this retraction is going to apply to every single filament unless you come to the filament and activate this retraction. So this is called a setting override. The setting override, this is going to override whatever is on the printer settings. So if I say, let's say 0.2, and the printer says 0.8, 0.2 will rule the retraction for the printings, okay? So I'm going to leave it 0.8 because that's what the test is going to tell me. And after we have this finished, we will find out how much retraction we need for this filament as such. So I'm just going to slice the plate and send it to print. Retraction test is finished, and this is the final result, okay? So with this test, what this is telling us is, you see these little rings that they come out of the model. This is telling us each step in retraction distance. So this is 0, 0.1, 0.2, 3, 4, 5, up to 2 millimeters, okay? So what this is telling us is that if you don't use retraction, this is going to cause these little hairs of stringing. But the problem is, okay, this is a new filament. I just took it out of a box completely new, so I would expect it's not fill up with water basically. But imagine if you have had this a filament for a few weeks or a couple of months in a plastic box with no desiccant or anything trying to absorb that humidity in the environment, that's going to be absorbed by the filament. So in this case, this is telling me, okay, if you use point over 0.1 millimeters in retraction, you're safe. And it's telling me that about this retraction distance, I'm going to have problems because it's retracting too much and there's something happening in the printer. So if I count, this is 0.0 something, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So basically, this line up to this line is 1 millimeter in retraction. I don't like to go over 1 millimeter. In this case, I'm going to go between this area, which is 1.1, 1.2. So I want to go in the middle, 0.6, 0.7. 0.7, I think it's going to be the best option for me. Although the printer is already set up in 0.8. So, you know, in the factories where they create these things, they already know in general how much the retraction can be, so that it kind of makes it work with every single filament in the market. So if I come back here, I need to do the same process. Close everything, don't save, and open it again. Open Orca Slicer again. And if you got a different number, let's say 0.5 or 1.2, something that is better, something that is away from this stringing, like from here, maybe your stringing starts to show up here and the rest up to here is clean and this is stringy, you play around with 1 or 1.1 for PLA, okay? Just remember, we're talking about PLA, no other filament. So, okay, I'm just going to make a small change on mine, which is I'm going to change it to 0.7, just to show you. So you come to the filament, click the 3 dots, click Edit, Setting Overrides, and then click Length, and change this to the number you got. Mine is 0.7. Save. And these settings, they are there because they are being taken from the printer. Now, there's a couple more things I like to do. One is this retract amount before wipe. So I would like to retract before wipe 40%. Basically, the printer will pull out some filament, and before it travels, it'll move certain distance in the part that is being printed, and then it travels. So it will retract on the layer change, and it'll as well retract whenever traveling. But in this case, it's going to retract, then will wipe 2 millimeters. So I'm going to show you what is going to happen here. I'm going to add this cylinder and, well, 2 cylinders like that. I'm going to slice them. And for example, before this finishes, okay, so it'll go up to there. That's where the layer finish. And then it'll jump to the other cylinder. Right in that position, it's going to retract 40% of the filament. It'll move 2 millimeters in the same direction, or probably in the opposite direction. And then it'll finish the retraction, and then it will travel. That will make sure that in a 90% of the cases, if everything is correct, there's you will have no stringing at all, okay? So keep those settings in mind. You can maybe change them, whatever you like, and test them. So this is the end. Appreciate all the time you spend with me. I hope this video helps you. I know it's a really long video. I don't want to create different videos from this one. I just want to leave this one as one, so that you can follow up and go back and forth. I'm going to leave as well the timestamps, so that you can go to the specific test and probably bookmark on your end pieces of the video that are helpful for you. So again, I hope this video is helpful, and I hope I resolve a lot of questions you had. And well, happy printing. Thank you so much, and see you later.